Okay, hi everyone. Once again, we're back. It's Panda and Alex complain about Steven Universe. And here we are with Season 1, Episode 4, Together Breakfast. As usual, I'm Panda, but not as usual, I am Wraith, the demon altar of this system. Or anger altar, I don't know. And this is Alex.
Hello.
Lovely. Now, let's go over a quick synopsis of the episode. It's a relatively simple premise. Steven wants to have a together breakfast with all the gems. He just makes a bunch of waffles and puts syrup and popcorn and whipped cream and strawberry on it. And speaking as a diabetic, it looks like my worst nightmare come to life. But anyway, what happens is that the gems are all kind of ignoring him for their own things in their own rooms, which we now see that this is sort of a temple that they all live in, that they all have their own, each designated area of sorts behind a big gem door. And while Pearl is going in, who was the third and final person to ignore Steven wanting to eat breakfast with all of them, Steven basically rushes in to try to see if he can get all of them to eat breakfast. And really from there, it's mostly just kind of a exploratory romp through the fantastical, whimsical space that the Gem Temple is, which doesn't exactly seem to obey the laws of physics or space time or other things like that. And at the end of the episode, Garnet, who originally ignored Steven because she needed to burn some sort of horrific object that just looks like Picasso art, uh, because Steven and Pearl and Amethyst, who were chasing Steven, break into the room. It breaks her concentration, and the deity, or whatever it is, escapes and then tragically possesses
Diabetes
the diabetes
nightmare.
nightmare. As our first example of plurality in this show, what would you like to? Okay, that's enough of the possession angle. But basically, it turns into a big honking monster, and they all have to kill it. And well, Steven pushes it into the same thing that Garnet was gonna push it in anyway, because he accepts that it's more about having a good together breakfast with his family than it is eating a diabetic nightmare. And honestly, it's probably for the best you don't eat the diabetic nightmare waffle hellspawn for multiple reasons.
But at the end of the episode, they make an even worser diabetic nightmare.
And then they stare at it and go like, "Let's just get pizza." And that's just the end of the episode. I honestly kind of like how it ends, where it's just like, I don't like this. I actually like it, but yes, that is the basic.
It
It works.
works.
It works. It does its job. I honestly like this episode as an introduction to the Gem Temple, because it's kind of been a background element for the. I know this is only episode 4, so it's not been that much, but it's kind of been an elements of intrigue, because for everyone who knows, Stephen lives in like a little house, kind of protruding out of this giant stone statue goddess thingy. And it's like, what's up with that? Is that like just a statue, or is there something more to it? And we get to see the inside of it. We see things that kind of look like they're out of like Mario Galaxy. We also, it's hard to tell if that was Garnet's room though. Still, you talked about this, Alex, right?
Oh, yes, when Garnet put her hands up, showed her two gems, which we will be talking about at the season
I don't know
finale.
why.
The room that popped up was the bubbling room with the lava well, and I think that was to suggest that that was actually Garnet's
I
room.
guess so. I it could be.
That is the
It
implication.
is
That is the way
true.
you're supposed to read it.
It is true. Well, until we see anything showing otherwise, and I guess it is reasonable to assume it is Guard's room. We saw pearls, which was large columns of water with tranquil music and swords. Oh, you also mentioned this, Alex, but we were also listening to individual character themes. Uh,
Yes, this is the first appearance of the individual character theme specifically for Amethyst and Pearl, which sound very
oh
nice.
yeah, and I think they fit the environment very well. I very much liked Pearl's environment a lot. I just think it's a very pretty environment with all the water columns, and it very clearly shows her sense of uh, rigid organization, but also elegance and beauty, I guess is the best way I can put it. And Amethyst,
I think the decision to have Pearl's room be very water themed is, I don't exactly know how to feel about it. Because typically when you think about water, it usually means it's interesting because water usually reflects like being very
flexible, like fluidity.
yeah, flexibility, fluidity, the ability to go with the flow. And Pearl is absolutely none of that. She is calculated. She is cool. She is analytical. If something doesn't logically make sense, she is going to have an aneurysm. Oh, I swore. Okay, she is going to have a freaking aneurysm. There's your second take. You can
Yay!
delete that one.
I have to
And
find.
it's a very interesting.
I have to find a funny
Yeah.
sound effect to put over every time we swear.
Yeah, it's a very interesting contrast to the kind of person that Pearl is. And the more this series will live, the more this contrast will come to light because, and this was stated in some of the, in one of the interviews with Rebecca Sugar around the time,
Really?
but around the time she went on the record saying that we knew the least about Pearl. So the decision to have water represent her, I feel, is um it's a very strange decision.
Interesting. Yeah, I was like, there was a little tickle at the back of our mind when we were talking about like, we didn't want to say like rigid. Yeah, I guess just rigidness and like status quo and stuff like that. But yeah, water doesn't typically do that. I guess it is like a nice like contradiction of sorts, but yeah,
Like I can't necessarily call it a gotcha, but but it
it does.
it's funny what it does to Pearl's character the longer this show lives.
Yeah, I kind of like saw it in the vein of like a ballet dancer where there's sort of a flow to things, which I could see it reflecting that aspect of Pearl, which maybe like a visual design cue element more than uh, fully a character contrast of sorts. I don't know. It is an interesting discussion on such a simple thing. Now, let's talk as in detail as we do about Pearl's environment and do the same with Amethyst's environment.
It's a junkyard. There's not much more to say about it.
It's trash. It's trash. Don't worry, everyone.
I mean, we haven't gotten to the episodes where Amethyst talks about her internalized issues, but even then, like, I really don't feel that it's a good reflection of who Amethyst is. It just feels very
We also
put
we are
together.
also running into the problem that we only were there for like 20 seconds at best, unlike Pearl's environment. One thing I did note that was interesting was that Amethyst almost seemed like a dumping ground underneath Pearl's environment. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it is kind of.
It's
Yeah,
funny. It's very
it is,
funny.
and it's also interesting because like Pearl was complaining that like her sword was in Amethyst area, but we can see that if you drop the sword at any point, it would just fall into Amethyst area. So like there's an actual like explanation, easy to understand explanation how that sword got there, but Pearl assumes that like Amethyst is the one that did it. There started some bickering between them actually this episode, if you noticed.
It's interesting because Pearl's room is very much above Amethyst's, and Pearl is also taller than Amethyst, so there are some rather interesting implications as to what Pearl feels about Amethyst in this episode.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and Garnet is there.
She is certainly there, isn't she?
She's too busy doing her job. She's being the serious one, and can't remember what else she does. Actually, she just kind of says at the end that like the breakfast tried to kill them, so let's get pizza instead.
She doesn't get a lot. She doesn't get a lot later on. This is the most we're gonna get from her,
Yeah, that's really.
which is really sad.
It's more of a Pearl Amethyst little blip showing their characters, and that's just kind of how it is. I don't. I actually kind of already ran out because it was kind of Steven just going through Super Mario Galaxy Temple. To be honest, that was most of it.
It pretty much was. This was the Super Mario Galaxy episode. The only other, the yeah, we talked about Pearl and Amethyst's individual character themes. Oh, in one of the chase sequences, Amethyst looked really off model. I know I said in the last episode that sometimes being off model can help with the comedic tone, but here I didn't really like it. I'm not going to explain why, and this problem isn't going to get better the more the show lives.
The background was
Um,
also a rare case where it was also 2D animated because it was showing like Amethyst running towards the camera, which I don't know if that like heightened or worsened the fact that it was also off model. Like when I say that out loud, it's like they put a lot of budget into this one shot that wasn't even on model.
that's true. I mean, if I am to think about the reason why I didn't like it, and bear in mind that I have not watched this episode since it came out, um, for an episode like this, I mean, it isn't out of place, but I think in my mind I was expecting more from the show when it came out, and just kind of seeing this, considering that the show doesn't get better, I think it just reminds me of the things that are going to come in the worst possible way.
All right.
Also, the temple is alive.
Oh yes, that's what we forgot to talk about. Is that Stephen runs into the heart of the temple, which is a big crystal heart. Honestly, one of the biggest crystal thing we saw so far, and it looked like a genuine like made crystal, not like how the crystal gems are like have just like little gems like showing out of them, or like Stephen has the one in his stomach. No, it was like bigger than all of them combined, and no, no, that's an interest. That's in a set of intrigue from my perspective, and I genuinely can't remember what happens with it. So it managed to catch my attention, even though I forgot to talk about it in the recording.
Okay, Wraith, if you remember this moment during like the end of season 5 or sometime before the movie, please bring it up because it'll be a very funny joke if we actually follow back up on this.
Yep, yep. I think I made a joke. I accidentally made a joke earlier this episode. I think didn't I call the diabetic's worst nightmare that it's like a monster going to kill me or something?
Yeah.
And it was a monster that was going to kill everyone else. So good for me.
Yep.
Also, there's a very interesting. I love seeing. I don't like love seeing them. It's just interesting to observe them, because this came out around the time that dubstep was still popular.
Oh, the dubstep
Yeah,
strawberry!
so there was like music going on whenever like Steven was putting it together, and it sounded like some very specific music I've heard before, but I cannot recall. It was weird, but like every time Steven.
It sounded like a Skrillex
No, no,
track.
no. I mean, like in the regular waffle making, like when putting the syrup and popcorn on, there was like a
Oh,
cooking music. I feel like I've heard before, but regardless,
it sounds like stock music that was made sometime during the 1960s, or a pastiche of
that is a
that.
good point. That's probably what I was hearing, but The point is, every time Steven dropped the strawberry on it, I guess they started playing dubstep until he put it down. Like, I'm assuming this is a drop the beat joke, but it was an interesting diversion that I'm not 100% sure worked. But
It was certainly a moment, was it?
yeah, it's again, it's not like a super bad moment. It's more just me observing how the specific time period that Steven Universe came out and how older it is than I realized. Yeah. I
Steven Universe is 11 years old at this point in time. That's something to think about.
It was coming out while I was in high school. I'm an adult now.
That is true.
But that's kind of all we got in here. Okay, here's a game. Here's a game,
Yeah.
Alex. What do you think they ordered for pizza?
Uh, Pineapple on pizza.
Good point. What if I thought that Pearl got anchovies on pizza?
That was actually my first assumption, but then I wanted to say something that would make a lot of people angry. So I said pineapple on pizza.
I've had pineapple on pizza before. It's actually not that half bad. It's a little too sweet for me, but like
I actually love pineapple on pizza, especially if it's made with like barbecue sauce. Like that, I love that. I love
I
that so
did
much.
not even think of barbecue sauce. Very interesting pizza
Well,
opinions we're having right now.
Domino's actually used to offer like barbecue sauce pizza, and what I would love was ordering a pizza that had barbecue sauce as the filling, and then having a bunch of pineapples on it. It was so good. It was so good.
You know, I'm learning so much today. I'm glad you enjoyed it because as a diabetic, I am screaming in agony on the inside. But regardless, but hey, on the bright
People
side,
are probably going to be mad at me for my pizza
that
opinions.
people will be mad at you for your taste, but here I'm only mad at you because I'm diabetic. There's a difference. And always remember the difference,
God,
kids. Smoking kills, just like that monster.
you're right.
That's all we
All
got.
right, is that all we
No, I
got?
think that's
Yeah,
all we
that's all
got.
we got.
Well, another day, another waffle monster destroyed. Talk to you later, everybody.
I gotta put $1 in the swear jar. Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody. Goodbye. If I could begin to be half of what you think of me, I could do about anything. I could even learn how to love like you.